Part of taking command of your life is controlling the things that you can. Another part is managing the things that you can't. Shane Parrish. Welcome to the show dedicated to helping you not just... Oh, wait a second here. Turn that music down. I want to say this slowly today. I want to make sure we remember the point of this show. This show is dedicated to helping you not just survive retirement, holding on for dear life, hoping that you'll be okay and that you'll get a good hand from the outside world is not a great way to live a life. That's scary. This show is dedicated to helping you have the confidence to lean in and create a great life, regardless of what's happening in the world. That's what Rockin Retirement is. By focusing on things that you can control and managing the things that you can't. That's all I care about. I want to make sure it's clear up front. I have no interest in getting political. And I say that because last show we mentioned a few political things in order to help people redirect energy towards their process in Rockin Retirement. And I got a lot of feedback. And that feedback ranged from, I can't believe you mentioned politics. Everything's awesome. Why did you do that? To, I can't believe you're not leaning in and taking a stand. This is the time to do it. And you're a coward if you don't. And then the more in between of you navigated this realm in a productive way to get us back focused on process. Bravo. Now I try to respond to every email I get, but I just want to make the point. I don't want to get political because that is beside the point when it comes to the process of creating a great retirement plan so you can have confidence. It's just not part of it. We got to focus on things we can control and manage the things that we can't. Some examples of that, like uncontrollable, things we can't control. We can't control the markets, but we can control our allocation and the costs and the taxes related to investing. We can't control the economy, but we can control our balance sheet and making sure we have buffers there to react in a productive way. No, we can't control the weather. It's raining here in Colorado, but we can control having some resiliency by having different types of clothes for different types of weather. We can't control disease. Just had a friend share some really sad news related to disease in their family. Came out of the blue. We can't control that. But what we can control are healthy habits, a healthy protocol with doctors for early protection. We can't control inflation, but we can control product choices and how we consume to manage it. That is the distinction that we got to continue to make. And that's what we're going to focus on this month is process. Today, we're going to talk about Social Security. Where do we have control and what don't we have control over and how do we navigate that? And then we're going to go non-financial and investing. We got some amazing guests on. And then all of this is going to culminate June 5th with an online event I would invite you to attend where we're going to focus on what does a good process look like? What are the things that I should focus my efforts on so we can have these guardrails so we can make better decisions. You can sign up for that and learn more at livewithroger.com. So we're going to talk about Social Security today because there's a lot of things going on there in the moment. But before we do that, let's get to Rockin Retirement in the Wild. I decided to pull this up front. So when we have these stories, I want to share them up front because it's always important to celebrate, and we should always do that first. So the other day, I was reading in the morning, as I normally do, and I read a sentence that I highlighted, and I put an asterisk next to it. I'll build a note card out of it eventually. The sentence was, more dreams die from a lack of confidence than a lack of competence. In my journey and talking to hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of retirees and pre-retirees, I agree with this statement. More dreams die of lack of confidence than of competence. About an hour later, I received an email from someone in the Rock Retirement Club and listener to the show, and I forwarded that email to my team. I'm going to read you what I said to my team first. I let them know about the sentence. Then I said, I received this email. So-and-so's journey goes to the core of what we do. Everything else is just noise. Thank you for speaking in many lives. You are making a difference. So that's what I said to the team. And I shared the email that this person shared. And I don't want to say who they are because I didn't ask permission. So I'm just going to summarize their email. The email they sent me was, he made it. Roger, he made it. See below. Thanks to all the help from the Rock Retirement Club, this day came much sooner than we expected. I never would have had the courage to tell him to pull the plug this early without the club. Thank you. So that was the email from a spouse, and she shared the email that he sent to his team about his retirement. And his email was, it's time to begin a new chapter in my life. I'm retiring from fill in the blank. My last official day is May 2nd. I have greatly enjoyed the work and the people I have had the pleasure to work with. Please spread the word. I hope to hear from you in the future. So I just want to say bravo to you too. Bravo to you too for having the confidence to lean in, knowing that there's so much that you can't control. You're going to create a great life, and I can't wait to see what you do with it. We're going to start the month off with our process focus with Social Security. The reason we're going to start there has been a lot of changes happening and a lot of announcements coming out of the Social Security Administration. Not that long ago, they repealed the windfall elimination provision, which increased the benefits for many retirees who were previously penalized because of non-Social Security covered work. That's a big change that gave a benefit to a lot of people that had some non-Social Security covered work. That has taken hold. And then this year, there have been a lot of announcements by the Social Security Administration that we actually had teed up to share related to how you interact with the Social Security Administration, either by phone, online, or going into the office. And as we've had them teed up, many of them have been repealed. So a lot of that's in flux. So we got to get a handle on that. And so we're going to have Marcia Mantell, who is an expert in Social Security, talk about the current state of what's going on. And she's going to have her opinions and give us a sense. But let's start off process-wise. What is controllable and what is uncontrollable? And so what do we have to manage and what do we have to make decisions on? Let's start with the controllable. The number one thing you can control with Social Security is your filing decision. When you actually file for your benefits. Generally, you can file at age 62 at the earliest, age 70 at the latest. You have control over this. In a planning process, when you're building out your feasible plan of record, our process is to use full retirement age as the default filing method initially, and not overthink it too soon. So when you're building out your feasible plan of record, I would encourage you to just focus on the assumption that you're going to file at your full retirement age. When you have a feasible plan of record and you're working through about making it resilient and optimized, then you can look at, do I take it early at 62? Do I take it late at 70? If I have a spouse, how does that interact? Do I have an ex-spouse benefit available to me? Do I have a survivor benefit available to me? Do that in the optimization stage, not early in the process. And the reason is you're going to go down a rabbit hole unnecessarily. Get to a feasible plan, assume full retirement age, then you can focus on optimizing it later on. That is something you have control over. The next thing you have control over is monitoring your benefits and what income is reported to the Social Security Administration. That's important because your income, as it's reported, is going to determine your PIA, your primary insurance amount, which is going to determine your benefit. So it's a healthy practice once a year to pull your Social Security statement from SSA.gov and review that to get a sense for what that benefit's going to be and to make sure that the earnings are reported correctly, because that can have a material impact on your income or that you receive from Social Security. All right, those are the controllables. What are uncontrollable? One thing that's uncontrollable from a practical planning standpoint is overthinking Social Security too early. If you're in your 50s, or if you know that it's going to not be early and it's going to be full retirement age and you're in your early 60s, over analyzing Social Security is a waste of energy, in my opinion, because it's what I call a green banana. It's something, if we know we're going to at least file at full retirement age, if we're 62, we don't need to analyze that because that banana isn't green until full retirement age. If we're 55, use the default as full retirement age and move on. Don't go down the rabbit hole of analyzing something that you can't make a decision on for a long period of time. That just takes energy and distracts away from things that are more pressing, things you have control over that you have to make decisions on now. I see this happen all the time, not just with Social Security, but a lot of different things in the retirement planning domain. We got to log that these decisions will be there, but we don't want to spend too much energy or time because we don't have a lot of energy and we don't have a lot of time. It's all finite. That is uncontrollable. That's why we assume default is full retirement age. And then as you have little conversations, when you get closer to that banana being ripe, you can really dive into the decision. Frees up a lot of time. The second thing that you don't have control over is the state of Social Security. Now, Google state of Social Security, you're going to find a lot of articles talking about that it is going to run out of money in 2033. With this change to the windfall elimination, it probably will be a little bit sooner. What does that actually mean? Well, Marcia and I are going to get into that. How often do you need to pay attention to that? I would say, well, once a year. Once a year, take a day, look at the state of Social Security, and let that inform your understanding. Anything beyond that, you really don't have any control over it. So we don't need to obsess about something unnecessarily that we can't control. We got to stay aware. Let's stay aware in a systematic way. Another thing that you can do, even though you don't have control over it, something you can manage is to participate in the political system to let your representatives know that, hey, this is really important. That is something we can do to help manage this, even though we can't control it. My view of Social Security, for what it's worth, because I do this systematically, is about once a year, I look at the state of it. I look at what's going on in Congress to try to shore it up if there's any political will there, and I make a judgment call. My judgment call as of now is Social Security is fine. If you're 55 or older, or even 50 or older, Social Security is going to be there in some way that's very similar to what it is now. There are a lot of changes. Marcia and I go into it during our conversation that are relatively easy to make as soon as there is the will to make them. So I don't spend much time worrying about Social Security, and I review it once a year just to check myself to make sure there aren't any significant changes or blind spots. But that's an example of what can we control, what can't we control. Now let's go do a deep dive on the state of Social Security with Marcia. So to help us understand the current state of Social Security, we're going to talk with Marcia Mantell. Now, Marcia and I have known each other for a number of years. She has the Retirement Management Advisor designation, which I have. She has volunteered for the Investment and Wealth Institute, which is the sponsor of this certification. And she and I serve on the curriculum committee in building out the curriculum in order to earn the Retirement Management Advisor. And she is an expert on Social Security. She holds the NSSA, National Social Security Advisor designation. She loves the policy and reading in detail the actual terms of the Social Security system. And she's the person I go to get an update feel for where the state of it is now, what her thinking is, and what is on the horizon. So let's have a chat with Marcia so we can focus on something we can't control, but we can at least manage what the feasibility of the plan is and increase our knowledge there. All right, here with Marcia. Marcia, I'm excited to see you in this domain because usually we're on a committee nerding out on test questions for the RMA. You, I think of when I think of Social Security in terms of really understanding the landscape, where things might be going, and the safety of it, because you really dive into this stuff.
Oh, Roger, I do. It's a little nerdy. You're right. I do dive in. I dive into the law. I have the law books sitting here in my office. They're about 3,900 pages long, this law that makes up Social Security. And I love this episode because it's facts over fear, which is so important today for the vast majority of us. I'd say we have a little fear in terms of Social Security, but I am not fearful. And maybe a little even surprised to say that, but it's not a fear component for me. It is a watchfulness. I'm more watchful and doing, I've changed some behavior. So I'm, for example, reading all the press releases now that come over from Social Security. They tend to come over almost daily at this point. And you read one, and then 4 or 5 days later, it's the same topic, but the action that was announced has now been reversed. So we're getting some ping ponging kind of situation with the current administration and the activities going on in Social Security. But it still isn't cause for fear. And I tend to go back to 1983, really for two reasons, Roger. First of all, I got married in 1983, then still married to that same college sweetheart of mine, Dan. And 1983 is also the last time Congress took gigantic action with Social Security because it was going bankrupt back in 1982. And so, what Congress's MO is, they wait until the bitter last minute to actually take action to shore up Social Security, which is the foundation of everyone, virtually everyone in America's retirement. And they know that. But that's 10 years from now before, the trust fund is supposed to be exhausting the reserve account. They got plenty of time. So we look at those as facts and prior actions. And frankly, it's the anticipation of what they're going to do. They'll wait. So I don't want people to be, you can be concerned, but that concern should turn into action, not fearfulness that creates decisions that are financially bad.
And where the idea of this episode came from is I did have a client say, we got to talk. I have no confidence my Social Security will be there, and I want to run a plan without it, which I can understand the reaction.
Yes.
And you reading the bulletins as they come out or the press releases, I think of it as the last time it was very acute was, it sounds like 2000 or 1983.
Yeah.
Between then and now, it's been like on a highway in West Texas. It's flat. Nobody's really you're thinking, but you can eat your hamburger and feel relatively safe. And now we're at a moment where we're on a twisty turn road where we can't see around the corner. And so we got to pay more attention, put the hamburger down.
Right.
And pay more attention. But it's still a road that has a solid foundation, right? I think of Winston Churchill. Our system is designed to do things at the last minute.
Yes.
And we're doing some of that, or maybe, I don't know, now. So what changes have happened, if any, as of now?
Well, interestingly, there have been some really good changes that started completely out of the clear blue. This is often how Congress works with Social Security, by the way. So back in 2015, I'll take you back just a little bit, 10 years ago, Congress passed the Bipartisan Budget Act, which got rid of a couple of strategies we were using. The file and suspend, then allowed a restricted application for a spouse. A little more nerdy than we need, but it came out of the clear blue. Well, lo and behold, this past November and December 2024, Congress all of a sudden, out of the clear blue, said, you know what? Weapon GPO really aren't fair. So let's pass a standalone law, the Social Security Fairness Act, and for the 3 million public workers who receive a public pension and therefore have their Social Security benefits greatly reduced in many cases, let's get rid of that. And so for 3 million people, not only did they get a pay raise from Social Security starting in March, but it also was retroactive to January 2024. When does that ever happen? So we started the year on a really high note
So
that,
let's
oh,
let's take a sidebar on that.
all
Okay,
right.
so web and GPO, for those of you that aren't familiar, are related to, and Marcia will correct me, which is wonderful if I'm wrong, related to teachers and other public servants that may have not paid into the Social Security system
As much.
as much. And so it was a way of compensating for basically lowering the benefit as a result of this scheme. This is a really good sidebar because I remember when that happened and it benefits a lot of people. But I remember some people, wait, this isn't fair. I paid into the system forever, right? That is maybe a reasonable position. It could be debatable depending on who you are. And I think this is an important distinction that we're all having a lot of trouble with right now is in the political sphere, this is all something that's up for debate and we should talk to our representatives, as you were going to suggest, and participate in the political system. But when you put your retirement planning hat for yourself on, it really doesn't matter because your focus is on how do I navigate what is. And
Right.
so I just want to point that out because that's a good example of we can put them together and they need to stay separate if you want to make good decisions for yourself.
Right. And unless you're one of the teachers, the firefighters, the people who run your town government, your state government, unless you got that, I'll call it bonus money, it doesn't affect you. However, what it signaled to me, and those of us nerdy people who watch this stuff, Congress is starting to take action instead of waiting all the way to 2033 when it's projected that reserve account the savings account side of Social Security will run dry. They're paying attention. They're starting to address some bits that are unfair or broken for some people. And that followed on very quickly in February and March, where in the House and the Senate, there are 4 different proposals rolling around to improve the tax of Social Security. Can we remove it entirely? Can we change the thresholds? So again,
are we talking the tax on the benefit or
on the benefit? Yeah.
Okay.
So should Social Security be taxed as income in retirement? Right now it is, right? It goes right on the front of your 1040, but people don't like that.
But that was an 83 change where it became essentially means testing, right?
That is correct. That is But what didn't happen back in 1983 when they did implement this, they never put an indexing factor on the threshold, on the income thresholds. So they're really low by today's standards, which means many more of us have to pay income tax on our Social Security benefit. So there are different proposals already floating around Congress. I think there are 4 of them right now, offered by different parties, both in the House and the Senate. And again, it's good news that Congress is paying attention that some things in Social Security need to be fixed. So it's on their radar. We don't usually see that. Usually, not only do we not have to pay so much attention to it, but neither is Congress because it works. Now they're looking at improving certain pieces to the trust fund and to the implementation of the program. I try to keep that in focus, Roger. There is some good news going on.
So let's step back a little bit from the present. We hear this number 2033 trust fund. What does that mean?
Excellent question. It is greatly misunderstood, isn't it? What most Americans hear, thanks to the way the media covers this 2033 date, is that Social Security will be bankrupt. When something is bankrupt, there is no more money. Kind of that simple. That is not what this is. What it is, Social Security is funded by all of us when we work by paying our FICA taxes, right? Your employer is required to put your share and their share into the Social Security Trust Fund. It goes into the checking account side of the Social Security Trust Fund. So then it turns around and, as my dad likes to say, thank you for paying for my Social Security to the 3 of us kids. And then so our FICA taxes go in, they get paid out to current retirees. When there's a leftover amount of surplus, it goes into the reserve account or the savings account or the rainy day fund. That's the only piece we're talking about, that the rainy day fund is being used to pay current beneficiaries today because we don't have enough income from FICA to pay the retirees.
So less money coming
Once,
in, so we're touching the reserve, and in
yes,
2033, the reserve part is gone.
is gone. But all the FICA taxes continue. We're all still working in 2033, or those who are working are paying in, earning their benefits for their retirement. But what it could affect is, and the concern is, and again, the fear mongering that goes on. That's a word I use in the articles I write, by the way. Stop the fear mongering. The media, whomever, is telling regular, wonderful people that, well, if the reserve fund goes bust, then you're going to have a 20% decrease in your monthly Social Security checks.
Right, because there's a deficit,
Well,
so they can't spend
there
it.
is, right. And you can only send out that amount that's coming in. I mean, this law is very specific. It doesn't have loose edges or wiggly edges or wavy edges. It's a box. It's a steel box, and the money that's in is all that's available to go out.
Okay.
So Congress needs to act. They need to find another way to either get some money, infuse some money in, or do all the other things they've talked about for the last 20 years.
So if they don't act, will benefits be cut in theory?
Well, in theory and mathematically, yes. Someone asked me the other day, but wouldn't they grandfather in anyone who's already getting benefits? Well, that's not how the law works. So not unless Congress says we're going to grandfather in everyone receiving, but we're going to now affect either younger retirees or people who are 50 at that time, and it'd be a future situation. Bottom line, nothing happens in a vacuum. You can't just stop paying people their 20%, that they're due. This is a paid in, calculated benefit entitled by your work history. So to think that the Congress is going to be so foolish as to let the old people of America go hungry, it's just not how it works.
And so when I hear Congress has to act at some level, and then I hear that we eliminated the WEP and the GPO. Positive in the moment, but that exacerbates that number because now we have more money
Only
going.
a little bit.
And maybe we forget scale of what the system is.
Right? We do.
Okay.
It sounds big. It moved the reserve fund depletion by 6 months. That's all.
Okay.
Even with all these retroactive benefits and the ongoing increase in benefits, it didn't move the needle much.
And then we're talking about not or indexing the taxation of it, which would exacerbate the issue.
That one does.
Right.
That changes things by 2 years.
Okay.
If we eliminate the taxation of benefits. So yeah, there is a cause and effect. Absolutely. This is all math.
And so, and I'm trying to navigate this. And right now, obviously, there's a lot of acute fear because lots of things are being talked about. You talked about, sometimes we do updates on guidance that the Social Security Administration does. And it's like, we stop doing that because they keep reversing themselves. There's a lot of push and pull. And it seems like there's some political will to think and address this. Mm-hmm. That's a good thing, right? I would think. And it's going to be messy because everybody's throwing up possibilities. And that's part of what the system is. It's messy. How easy is it to create a sustainable Social Security system? We're talking about 2033, sustainable for all time is, sort of silly talk, I think, in terms of being able to, but if we punted it out to 2060.
It's 75 years. 75 years is the magic end.
What practical changes would do that?
Well, interestingly, there are a ton of ideas, all small changes, a little bit here, a little bit there. For example, the one we always hear about is increasing the retirement age. I can't stand that idea. Not that anyone's asking me, but that is the wrong thing to do in America. So let's put that one aside, though there's a possibility. And that's because we did that back in 1983 with the 83 amendments that made all of us younger boomers have to go to age 67 rather than 65 for our benefits. But they're more important and small things. You could increase slightly the FICA payroll tax. You could, a lot of this is around means testing. Change the PIA formula. PIA is the primary insurance amount. It's your benefit amount that your calculation tells you you're going to get $2,000 a month when you reach full retirement age or whatever your number. We can change that formula so that instead of your highest 35 years of earnings, we need your highest 40 years of earnings. That will change the game. We can remove the taxable wage base. This is where all the really high income, wealthy income people don't pay in nearly as much as us mere mortals, where we pay up to 100% of our income is FICA based, FICA taxed. What's the taxable wage base this year? 176.1. I
I was
think it's
going to
something
look it
like
up
that.
as we were talking. Yeah. And the
Yeah,
idea
it's
of
about
that is
100.
that your benefit gets capped. So that was the logic of
Yes.
it. But yeah, if you above a certain amount, that goes away.
That's right. So we can eliminate that or quickly move it to $400,000. Anyone earning $400,000 or more, they're capped for Social Security inbound dollars at 400,000.
$176,100.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Good when I do remember some things. So there are lots of things that can change and not harm our children. My kids are in their 30s now. And they are not so sure Social Security will be there. I tell them it will be. It might look different and they might have to pay a little bit more in, but this is a program that is set to provide, and it's never changed the goal of Social Security. It helps all of us when we retire have a minimal amount of income, roof over our head, not a fancy roof, not a mansion, a basic roof, and food on the table. That's all it was designed to do, and it's met that obligation every year for 90 years. That's
And
pretty good.
and a lot of these changes are the impact in the moment to an individual are relatively minor,
Yes.
right?
Especially when you're younger and you've got 30, 35, 40 years to go before you're even eligible for the program.
So and this is where I've always come to is like, well, they're significant changes, but the impact in the moment to an individual is
Tiny.
and, maybe annoying. Like if they did away with the earnings cap, okay. I make more than that amount. I'm blessed to have that this year. Okay. I'm going to have a tax increase,
Right.
but it's not going to change my life. It's going to be annoying.
No, it is not.
I might whine about it, but it's not going to change my life. Whereas, do you know the percentage? I haven't looked at it in a while. The percentage of people that rely on Social Security as their primary funding of their life and retirement.
It's over 50%, and it becomes 90% of women who are widowed or single if they hadn't. I mean, we're talking about people in their 90s today. They didn't have the opportunity to save. There was no 401k. It wasn't invented. So it's over half though use Social Security as their primary source of income.
So as
Over
a core,
50%.
it is a safety net. Social
Yes.
Security, which is what it's always meant to be, and it still is.
And it still is.
And a lot of the adjustments are, we could frame it as means testing in a way,
Yes.
but that is what the system is in a way. It is the minimum safety net.
And I think that's really important to remember, the minimum. This was never meant to replace your income. This program, Social Security, it was never meant for you to do nothing on your own to save for your retirement years. Now, it's gotten harder and trickier over the decades since the 1930s as we are living so much longer. And the 401ks weren't invented until the late 70s, and they rolled out about 1982. So even the boomers who are 10 years older than me, they had 10 years where it didn't exist. So you couldn't have saved. The IRAs rolled out in 1974. They were favorable, but very low contribution rates, $500, and then it went to $1,500, and women couldn't even save if they were at-home moms. So don't get me started on that roller coaster. So we didn't have this current structure, but we've always had this safety net. Safety net. That's all it was ever meant to be. So you still have to do your share to save, or have life insurance, or if you had a pension, to make sure you're not doing a single life. If you're married, to do your pension over single life, it needs to be over joint life. There are facts and strategic moves on the financial front that we all need to be smarter about. And Social Security claiming is one of them. Will it still be here? Yes.
Yeah. So
where's it going?
And we don't quite know. So here's the core question, right? So, and this is why I had you on the show, other than you're just a great lady.
Thank you.
Is in our work together on the Investment Wealth Institute RMA committee and our countless discussions around Social Security, and I've sat in your presentations, you think about this a lot. You don't just think about it, you research it a lot. And you're my canary. Is it canary in the coal mine, right?
Canary in the coal mine.
You're my canary. Because this is where you pay attention to this. And so at the end of the day, if you are 55 and older and you're working through building your retirement plan of record and manage and trying to navigate, we all should be concerned. I'm concerned about everything all the time, but should we make a material change related to what we anticipate our Social Security benefit to be?
It's an excellent question. And here's my answer to you. And I do think about this. I sometimes lose sleep over this. And I had to figure out, what can I say or do or write about that might help someone get to sleep at night? And it's 4 words. Well, 5 with an and. It's wait, 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 and watch. And what I literally mean by that is wait to retire. Do not retire at 55. I mean, if you're super wealthy, maybe, but and don't retire at 60 because you're tired. I know, believe me, I'm tired. You're fine. Keep working. So work longer. Wait to tap your personal assets. So don't start at 59 and a half just because you can, and wait to claim Social Security at least until full retirement age. Do not jump in at 62, even if you're 62 today. And just to give the audience some perspective here, I will be 64 in July. My husband will be 65 in December. We are that person, right? We're going, oh, should we have done this? Should we claim? Our plan is not to claim. Should we make a change? Watch. But right now, the answer is no. The answer is not really me, to be honest, because I watch this stuff anyway. But for those who don't watch Social Security every day, don't watch it every day. It's the same as you don't look at your account value every day with the tariff hoopla going on. Like, that's not a plan. That's a panic. Let's not go there. But we have to watch a little bit more. We have to be a little bit more mindful. But do you wholesale change your plans? No. Could you run them with the 20% possible cut coming in 2033? I think that's a wise idea, because what you're going to find is you're not going to have the retirement you thought you were going to have, and that will help you stay the course.
And I think also be agile. There's a lot of fixes that will likely come when it's forced to come, and hopefully the political will right now is there. And I think the other thing, and we talked about this offline, is this is one reason, not in your retirement planning hat, but in your political life, talk to your representatives.
Yeah. That's something I've never done before, ever. I know who my congressperson is. I know my senators. I have never in my entire 63 years felt the need to ever talk to my representatives. Now, were they doing fine? Not necessarily, but it didn't matter. Now I feel that it's important that my voice is heard. So I do have their phone numbers with me. I do call them. Well, not quite once a week. I was in February and March.
Once a week? Wow.
Yeah. Well, really what they're looking for is, are the constituents concerned about anything? And if so, what? And the reason you call is because it's much faster for the staffers to log in. They don't, quote you or anything. That's just, we had 99 calls on Social Security today. We had 5,000 calls on Social Security this week. They can report that to the representatives because that's how they keep tabs on how aggressively do we need to fight or bring something up in the House or the Senate. So yeah, I never felt the need to be politically active before, but now I feel it's very important that my voice is heard. And this is how we do it in America.
Yeah.
We pick up the phone.
I have confidence that it'll be fixed.
I do too.
Thanks.
I really do. And I have been telling people who have written in or called me who were on track to wait until 70 or full retirement age, stay on track. If something wildly happens, we'll let you know.
We will have links to your blog and the articles on thestreet.com. So for people that want to keep track of your thinking on this, thanks for hanging out, Marcia.
That'd be great. Oh, thanks, Roger. Great to see you.
You too.
On your marks, get set.
And we're off to take a little baby step we can take in the next 7 days to not just rock retirement, but rock life. In the next 7 days, I want you to take a moment and reflect on your retirement planning process and identify one item that you can't control that you're spending too much energy and time on. First step is awareness. What is one thing that you really can't control that you're just really going down the rabbit hole on? And then what is one thing you can do to stop or moderate that so you have more energy to focus on the things that you can control so you can create a great life? Now it's time for our next installment from missions flown by my grandfather in World War II in a B-17. Mission number 44. We're getting close to the end here. They flew 50 before they went home. September 5th, ship number 321, sortie 29th. Our respects were made to Budapest, Hungary. The target was a railroad bridge, which seemed to be hit fairly good despite heavy and intense flak. P-51s and 38s were escorts, carried 6 1,000-pound bombs. Mission was 7 hours and 35 minutes. Altitude 29,000 feet. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance reference is historical and does not guarantee future results. All indices are unmanaged and cannot be invested in directly. Make sure you consult your legal, tax, or financial advisor before making any decisions.